This is a WKYT podcast.
Andrea, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm pretty good. I'm good.
Convincing.
We're both just in the middle of a lot of stuff. Oh yeah, today is the day after my birthday, so I had a good night yesterday. Some family came over, and
you're not 40, by the way, which
correct.
Robert was spreading that rumor.
Yeah, he's a big liar. I'm technically still in my 30s. We'll just keep it at that.
Enough said.
Yeah, how deep into my 30s, that doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Although there was a fun
We're essentially the same age.
Basically, yeah. Whenever I came in yesterday, there was a moment where, everybody's like, okay, it's his birthday, now how old is he? And there was some confusion. And I'm like, well, all right, I'll take that.
You seem young.
Well, I think I seem immature. Maybe that
No,
comes
I
off
did
as
not
young.
say that. You have...
youthful exuberance.
Exactly. That's basically what I was looking for. A vibrance about you.
All right, Andrea, let's get into today's podcast. We had a rare occasion when Brian Milam was here early.
Mm-hmm. And I was not.
You were busy. You were out doing stuff, such as the nature of the business. But I thought, you know what, Brian's here. We've wanted to get him on the podcast. That's a chance to get him in and talk to him. And you did your homework. You've listened to this interview.
I did. You found me in an edit bay listening.
Yeah, I was very
and
proud of you.
shopping at the same time. I was scrolling through some,
Well, I mean, I always do other stuff on listening to podcasts, so I couldn't fault you for that. We got to talk to Brian and sports fixture here at WKYT now.
Mm-hmm.
And,
yeah, he's the director.
Yeah.
He's the head man in charge.
The new Rob Bromley, but at this point, he's the new Brian Milam.
There you go.
So.
By the way, I'll explain why I wasn't here, because it's going to be my favorite thing this week.
Okay.
Yeah, so a little teaser for you. Stick around for that.
So yeah, stick around for that. And here's our conversation with Brian Milam of WKYT Sports. So I'm here today with Brian Milam. Andrea is out on assignment, so she's missing this exciting conversation that will probably just break down into 80s wrestling at some point. Brian, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, glad to be here. Thank you. Excited.
Yeah, I could tell you're like, yeah, I happen to be here. I'm already in early enough. That's something that doesn't happen that often. And then Victor bothers me to come down.
Exactly.
And talk about my life.
This is your life.
There we go. This is your life with Brian Milam. I think you might be our first real sports guest.
Not to be confused with the fake sports guest.
Exactly. Well, I mean, we've had Lee K has been mentioned a few times when Kristen's been on, but that's been about it.
Yeah, that's about when you're a husband, you only get mentioned.
You just get it's like the kids, and then
See, I'm not married, so I get on the air. It's great.
There you go. You don't have to worry about that. All right. So I guess we normally kind of get into how people got into the business. Is this something you knew that you always wanted to do?
No.
Okay.
It's not, actually.
Where'd you go to high school?
Went to Butler in Louisville. Well, I went to Doss half of my freshman year, and then my dad was named baseball coach at Butler in Louisville, so I transferred to go play for him.
I was going to say, you've always been involved in athletics, played baseball.
Yeah, I was a baseball junkie from, coming out of the cradle, basically, and played high school football as a punter, played a little bit of basketball and like Metro Parks, Little League stuff, but I was always a baseball guy. And when my dad took the baseball job at Butler, I transferred, played for him, and had a good career, went on to play at Morehead State. And when I was at Morehead, Morehead's known for its teaching degrees and whatnot, and I thought I wanted to be a teacher, and I didn't apply myself early on to be in teaching. So I thought, well, what else can I do?
Start looking around at different things.
Yeah, and I was like, I know sports, I speak okay. My dad's an English journalism teacher, so I have a writing background, whether I wanted one or not. And so I said, well, let's just try broadcasting, and we had a News Center 12 on Morehead State's campus, and dabbled with that. Chris Bailey and I were co-anchors. Sometimes he did news, I did sports. He did weather. Sometimes I did news, and so it just started from there.
A little bit of everything. That's a few people we've talked to have kind of been like that. Like I went in as English teaching. And then at some point started writing for the paper at EKU, and then it's like, oh, I like this journalism thing. And then, a lot of people just – we've talked to a few people who've always known that that's what they want to do, but for a lot of us, it seems like we kind of just fall into it.
Yeah. I fell into it a little bit, but I've always – being a baseball person, I listened to a lot of games on the radio. And so there was a part of me that always wanted to do play-by-play. And I did play-by-play for television, a little bit of radio. And I got my first radio job at WMOR in Moorhead. Jim Forrest hired me as the sideline guy for Rowan County football for
Was
Moorhead
this while
State.
you were in college?
This is while I was in college. So I was doing Moorhead State football my latter part of college as the sideline reporter for 2 years, did Rowan County football on Friday night. So I got into it slowly but surely. And as I have heard myself 23 years earlier, let's just say my voice was way up here. I did not have a delivery, had no timing, thought I knew everything when I really knew nothing. So
It's always interesting when you go back and listen
it's sad.
to your earliest
It's
stuff.
sad.
Oh, man, yeah.
Bad and sad.
So then, how did you? I guess I'll go back a little bit. It's always interesting to me because you think about growing up. If you said, "Oh, I want to be on TV, I want to be on the radio," it almost seems unrealistic, because it's like, well, that's something for other people. That's not something you really just, figure out how to do.
Yeah.
So
I was doing TV at Moorhead, and how I got into the business was, you talk about hitting the lottery. If there is such a thing in television lottery, I hit it, and I didn't even know it. I am sitting working on a sports clip, and a young lady named Beth Goins, who is one of my favorite human beings of all time, sprints up the stairs, out of breath. You got to put a resume in. WYMT and Hazard has an opening. You got to go right now. I said, okay, Beth, slow down, slow. What are you talking about? She said, WYMT and Hazard has an opening, and they need a reporter, an anchor. I think you'd be great. Well, I was not great. I wasn't good. I stunk.
but you were a body.
But I was a body, and I had a
And you
moment.
knew sports.
Yeah, I knew something. And so I said, okay. So I put in a resume. My only resume reel I have ever done.
Really?
Yeah, and it was college. Yeah, so it was not good. But YMT back then, it was still, and it still is to a degree, a starter station for a lot of people, where the TV audience has matured. Mm-hmm. And so back then you could still make some mistakes. Now you really can't make as many mistakes. But and here's how I hit the lottery, though. I put in my tape, Tony Turner, the late great news director at WYMT, who was without question one of the greatest human beings I've ever been around. He said, all right, buddy, I'm looking for a reporter and an anchor. Unbeknownst to me, he needed a male reporter and a male anchor, obviously. 14 people applied. This was before the internet exploded. 14 people applied. 13 women, 1 man. So I got the job literally by default because he had several female reporters and didn't need any more women, so he needed a guy to kind of help balance it out. I won by default.
You were literally the only man.
Yeah, I was probably 14 out of 14 in terms of talent, but hey, I'm here. So it was literally hitting the TV lottery because when I was in college, all I ever heard was you have to get your foot in the door. Just get in there.
That is the hard part, getting them to know you.
Yeah, and I hear it from people today. It says I need 2 years experience. Well, how do I get experience if no one will hire me? I know that's the way it is with anything. Mm-hmm. But I just happened to luck out and rolled the hot dice, and hey, there you go.
So how long were you in Hazard? Because we've talked to a few different people on here who they were there for a little while and then they kind of move on. But you had a pretty good stint.
I'm the longest tenured person ever at WYMT who left.
Wow.
12 and a half years. I was there from January 2nd, 1998 to May 28th, 2010. I have worked at 2 television stations, YMT and KYT.
Did you ever think you were a lifer at YMT, or did you just
like the people? There was a
the...
part of me that thought, I enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. There are some people that you and I know, and they have to have a social life, mm-hmm. a social butterfly. I got to be out. That's not me. If I go out, great. If I don't, great. I'm pretty much happy with whatever I'm doing. But in the late 90s, Hazard and Eastern Kentucky it was a lot busier than it is now. The coal industry certainly has taken away a lot of jobs and people. So things have deteriorated in some social aspects, if you will. But there was a lot of things to do back then.
And for a lot of that area, high school sports is where it's. That
high school sports is the lifeblood of Eastern Kentucky, entertainment in many ways, and especially basketball, football. But I started out in news. And a lot of people don't know this. I started out in news as a male reporter, male anchor. I was the co-anchor for the 11 o'clock news with Susanna Sizemore. And I didn't really know what I was doing. I did not know the difference between Pikeville and Pineville, Knott County, Knox County. I didn't know a lot of stuff.
Because you were from Louisville, you'd gone to Moorhead, and pretty much those two areas
and
were what
I
you knew.
dated a girl from Knott County, so I was familiar with the area. But being familiar is, I know where Perry County is, Floyd County, Knott County, and that's about it.
You get from one to the other.
Yeah. But I was in news for 18 months. And the first day I got out of news, let me just say, news, Steve Hensley took my spot. So news drastically got better. Drastically. And I think sports got better also because I replaced a guy who had left. And I think I was a lot more energetic and ready to go. And
that was the world you knew.
That was everything that I knew. I knew so much about sports, especially the high school angle. And I learned a lot while I was there. And but yeah, YMT got a lot better when Steve Hensley took over for me, and then I went to sports. I promise you that.
Well, I think there's just something nice about covering a world that you know.
Yeah,
that you spent so much time in. So you were there, and so then when did you start thinking about making that transition? I guess that was about did you come? You came a few years before Rob left.
Yeah.
And so you kind of settled into the role of someday he's going to walk on into the sunset.
And I thought, hey, it's 2010. My head has hit this glass ceiling here. It's time to go. I'd gone through a divorce, so it was time to go and just, branch out. Yeah. And Rob had been here since 1977, I believe. And I thought, well, eventually. I did Sports Spectrum for KYT in 2002, 3, and 4. So I knew KYT. I had been here several times, had worked with Dick Gabriel and Rob and Steve Moss and people over the years intermittently. But when I got here, I wasn't ready for the job mentally because I was going through a lot of personal stuff and leaving a place I'd been at for 12 years.
Yeah,
and
that's a big change.
Comfort level out the window.
And Hazard to Lexington is quite the
it is. It's only
change.
2 hours, but man, it's a drastic change.
But I guess it helped that you grew up in Louisville, so you were used to city life.
Yeah, I am so adaptable. I grew up in Louisville, played ball at Moorhead, went to Southeast Kentucky, lived here in Lexington. I am comfortable literally anywhere.
There are people that are surprised whenever because I'll have people talk to me about other people in the station and be like, oh, where are they from? Whenever I tell people, oh, yeah, Brian's from Louisville, they're like, what? I thought he's from the mountains.
Exactly. I was there so long, people thought I was from there. And Tony Turner, to tell a quick story, he said, look, you're coming to a place where people are very particular about the people they deal with. Mm-hmm. He said, where are you from? I said, Louisville. He goes, that's right. He said, so where are you living? I said, I'm living in Knott County with my girlfriend and her family. They put me up in the downstairs bedroom. Everything's great. And I'm staying with them so I can accumulate some money, get my own place. He goes, good, you're from Knott County. I'm billing you from Knott County. So everybody thought I was from Knott County because I stayed there my first 3 months or so. And so when people said, where are you from? I was like, Knott County. Knott County. So I kind of fibbed a little bit.
So then you come here to Lexington. What was that change? And did you, growing up, were you a Louisville fan? Were you?
Yeah.
So growing up in Louisville, that makes sense.
Well, but there's a lot of UK fans.
There are
a lot more than people. When people say you're from Louisville, a lot of people automatically think you're from downtown Louisville.
And that's what I was wondering because there are in Louisville there are Louisville fans or UK fans. You find a mix.
Yeah, you find a huge mix. But I did grow up a U of L fan, and I could tell you everything about U of L basketball from 1980 to 97. I mean, I could. You give me a number, I'll give you a name, I'll give you a score, I'll give you this. But then when I started to cover UK, this was funny. When I was in Eastern Kentucky, and a lot of people, my girlfriend at the time and her family knew I was a huge U of L fan. So when Tim Couch scorches U of L 68-34 in the first game at then Papa John's Cardinal Stadium, they were like, hey, we're going to watch KYT on the replay. You want to watch it with us? And I said, oh, yeah. But my allegiance certainly changed once you start covering a team.
It's easy to get caught up in it, man. It really is. It's a
and I don't root for UK or U of L. I want UK to win, certainly, for their sake, because it's good for business. It's good for them. It keeps us
fun
busy.
to cover.
Yeah, it is. But I don't get when UK and U of L play, I just want to see a great game. Like this past year, goes to overtime. Oh, that's awesome. That's all I want to see. And but yeah, my allegiance has changed over the years. But when U of L used to beat UK in the late 80s, I was like, yeah, all right. But then when UK would smoke Louisville, which they have done most of the time, I had to eat crow a long time ago. But now I don't eat any more crow. I'm always on the good side.
Nice,
so it's great.
That does help.
Yeah, it does.
I think for people who are in sports, is covering a team like UK, is that kind of the pinnacle? I mean, this is when you talk about college athletics, UK is the top.
When you talk about basketball, certainly it's easy to. The pinnacle is Kentucky. I mean, they may not have the national championships that UCLA does, but UCLA's heyday was in a decade, 15-year run. Kentucky's had a 100-year run. I mean, let's be honest.
I mean, every year it's like, okay, well, we're not in the Final Four. People are disappointed.
Exactly, and but it is great covering Kentucky basketball because it has taken me places that. If you're covering a mid-major or a team that's I'm not going to pick on Cincinnati, but just say Cincinnati. Cincinnati hadn't been to the Final Four since like 1992. A team like, I don't know, Tennessee, for instance, has never been to a Final Four. What's that like? I don't know. But football, now granted, Tennessee football has been great for the better part of 60 years. They've won SEC titles, 2 national championships, whatever. But covering UK basketball has been a joy because while it's different every day, it's still the same. And so there is a comfort level where you can, every year the players are different. But Calipari kind of gives you the same message, and you get to see these kids grow a little bit. The one thing that I do miss about UK basketball is seeing players. That's why I love Nick Richards. He's been here 3 years now. That's almost unheard of today.
Recently, yeah.
But that's great because you get to watch these guys mature. I think when UK players go to the NBA, I think some UK fans – okay, well, who's the next crop? Who am I going to root for now? Because if you talk to a lot of older UK fans, they'll say, oh, Kenny Walker, one of my favorites. He was here 4 years. Say, people who were here 4 years, so you watch them grow up. Sam Bowie, Melvin Turpin, Dirk Minifield, those guys of the early to mid-'80s, they were here for 4 years. For Sam's case, 5 years because of the broken leg. And you got to know those guys intimately in some ways. You got to root for them, see them all the time. And now with UK – with this carousel every year, I think it's hard for some UK fans to get emotionally attached to a certain player for a long period of time.
It's been an adjustment, kind of just learning to love the program as opposed to individual. Yeah, I was like that. Eric Daniels was a player that I loved. Like that was
tough player, my time. Tough guy.
And so those are the kind of players that people would get attached to because they're here for a long time, and then you watch them. Yeah, all right. And then it's also been interesting, especially within the past few years, watching the football team.
Oh man,
turn the corner into becoming. When it's people always complain. I mean about everything, and it's just people this year. When a down season is beating a good team in a bowl game, like that's it's like well, you know how excited some UK like football fans would have been to hear that's going to where the program's going to be, that a down season is going to a bowl game and beating somebody.
I said a long time ago, I said Kentucky, this was probably a decade ago, I said Kentucky football fans are happy with a 7-win season. Hey, we're going to a bowl game. That's great. We go to the Music City. Okay, great. We go to Liberty. Great. But now UK fans, hey, 7 wins isn't enough. We want 8.
Which is good. You want to get to that point where
you always
there's an
want to expect more. And is Kentucky football ever going to be at the par consistently of Alabama football? It's a long way coming. Because Alabama is what UK is to basketball. They have so many national titles, SEC championships. But it is great to see Kentucky football on the climb. And when Mark Stoops took over, UK football was at one of its lowest spots ever. And he inherited almost zero major Division I talent and has done what he's done so quickly. I think it will go down in history, in college football history, as one of the greatest turnaround jobs ever, especially if he can keep this thing going to another 9, 10, 11-win season.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be exciting to watch, and I'm sure as somebody covering that, I'm sure that's
I love football and
Yeah.
baseball. I like being outside. I really like basketball, but I love being outside and seeing a metamorphosis. UK basketball, it's easy to get. Okay, yeah, yawn. 30 win season. Okay, great.
Let's get in there smoking somebody, yeah.
28 win season. For football, you wake up, go, is it going to be 6, 7, 8, 9, 10? What are we going to get? That there's an excitement level because of the unexpected with football.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today. Andrea's going to be sad that she missed this. If somebody wants to reach out to you online, they want to connect, what's the best way to do that?
Call you. No.
I'll direct them your way.
But I'm at Twitter at Brian, Brian, WKYT. You can give me an email anytime you like. You can get me up on Facebook, whatever. I'm around. And if you see me at a ball game, just say, hey, heard you on with BVP. That's Big Vic Puente for those of you scoring at home.
I can't wait to start going with that. All right, so I'm surprised. We did not get into this too much, but you and I, both wrestling fans, but you are I would say a lapsed fan as far as your time was the 80s was your heyday.
When I got out of college in 97, that's when I kind of started to backtrack a little bit. I was there with Steve Austin and Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart and all those
that was
guys.
when it exploded.
But that's when, for me, it started to die down. When the Monday Night Wars were over, that's when I said, okay, it's kind of time to get on with real life. But I grew up going to the Louisville Gardens about once every 6 weeks as a kid on Tuesday night at the Gardens, and Jerry Lawler and Bill Dundee and the Fabulous Ones, and man, that was a good time.
Well, it's always time. And working here, it's always exciting because you hear, Buzz will tell stories about.
Randy Savage.
About Randy Savage, yeah.
Yeah, Randy Savage used to edit the wrestling shows across the street and would come over here and do some stuff. And I mean, could you imagine walking down the hallway and
the Macho
seeing
Man.
Randy Savage? Hey, good to see you, brother. Yeah, I got some tapes here. You know what I'm saying?
I'm picturing Randy Savage, editing video. Ooh, I gotta get my in point. There we go. Got an out point.
Gotta backtrack that. Going the volume's a little loud. Yeah. And so but he was my favorite guy. And I asked Jerry Lawler once, I said, best athlete you were ever in the ring? He goes, oh, Savage, easy. I mean, he could do things. Minor league baseball.
Well, you've seen I was gonna say he played baseball and then video of the WWE athletes going out and playing the WWF.
Yeah.
Playing baseball for charity and stuff, and just the stuff he would do.
Yeah, I mean, he was Doug Flynn, who played at UK and played for the Reds and the Mets. He and Keith Madison, also former UK baseball coach. They got to play around with one another, got to see one another in the minor leagues, and they're like, "Hey, guy can play some ball." I mean, he was just a heck of an athlete, and then he turns into, one of the greatest sports entertainers of all time. But he was my guy. I even dressed up as Halloween as the Macho Man once, and it was a good time.
That's very exciting. All right, Brian, thanks.
Thank you,
Andrea. It was fun learning about all that stuff.
Of course, it always is. I always find it fascinating, especially that Brian was an anchor, a news anchor.
Yeah.
How funny. I love it.
Yeah, that cracked me up. And before he even got here, we all knew him because so much of his stuff was already coming to WKYT, and he would come do stuff here. But yeah, it also, I remember the first time I learned that he was from Louisville. I thought, what? I thought he was...
I thought he was from the mountains.
Yeah.
I swear I did. You've been in the mountains a long time. When people forget you're from Louisville, like, what?
So that all makes sense. All right, Andrea, you were talking about your favorite thing this week.
Well, hold on.
Okay,
One thing I will say, I think we missed an opportunity with Mr. Brian.
Yes, you wanted more of this.
Well, only that he is so good at impressions. Like, you didn't get a Rob Bromley impression, and he does a great one.
We'll get him back in for that.
And maybe that's why he was good for, as a news anchor, because he could just kind of impersonate
a news anchor.
News anchors. He's great at it.
He does do good impressions of Rob, Bill.
Oh, gosh. Everybody has a Bill impression.
Everyone does that. That should be the thing from now on. Every time someone's on, they have to do their Bill Bryan impression.
Oh, my gosh. Yes.
Or we do an entire episode of just Bill Bryan impressions. Maybe
that would be funny.
Yeah.
Or we could do it ask one question to everyone, and they have to answer it in a Bill Bryant voice, and people have to guess which one was Bill.
Which one was Bill? Yeah, I like
the
that.
real Bill Bryant.
All right, that's good. Well, there we go. So say hi to Brian. Thank him for being on the show.
Yes.
And so you, while I was interviewing him, you were out.
I was in Wilmore.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I actually grew up in the country. So, when you think of Wilmore, you think of the little city, the little Mayberry. And that's not exactly where I was, but I did go to Wilmore Elementary. So I used to, I shopped there my parents shop there, my family shop there, my friends shop there at the Fitch's IGA in Wilmore. So it's just one of the last fixtures of like small town America still left standing.
Just the one guy running it, like that kind of thing, him and his family. And
his name is Leonard Fitch, and he is maybe one of the nicest human beings on this planet. Just such a good man. And, you know, for years he's been struggling. I didn't realize how bad it was. You know, I'd seen on Facebook that there was like this push to kind of help him out. And, you know, I went and talked to him and did a story. And he said, you know, for the last 6 years, they haven't been turning a profit. He's taking money, his own money, and putting it into the store so they can keep running. And it's just heartbreaking. And like inside the store, there were like handmade signs on cardboard saying like, I come in and I give him $5 when it's cold outside for utilities. Like, please, you know, help him. It's just so sad. And my mom, I remember she said, you know, you have to do this story. And I was anxious because I'm like, I have to do it really well. And I knew that. And it's like I was a little bit overwhelmed. I'm like, I don't know if I can do him justice. You know, he's such a good person. But I remember, you know, if there was a family that didn't get paid till Friday, but they needed groceries on Tuesday, he'd give it to them. You know, he'd be like, pay me when you can pay me. And, you know, obviously, like, I kind of even mentioned it to him. I'm like, you know, that's probably why you're, you know, struggling financially. And he does. I mean, he's not, you know, he knows exactly what's happening. But that's the kind of person
he'd rather help somebody than...
Exactly. And, you know, like I said, everybody calls Wilmore Mayberry, and he's like, that's what I want. I want this to be Mayberry. Like, I want people to care about each other. And I think that, like I said, it's just like this last thing left, you know, that is so pure and so like homey. And yeah, so basically we're just wanting people to shop there. So I know it can be out of the way. Maybe you don't live in Wilmore, but if you just want to help a good person, help a good man, just do like one trip a month to the Fitch's in Wilmore, Fitch's IGA. Like, I don't even call it IGA. I just call it Fitch's. That's what it is. You know, it's just like his store. So yeah, just go there. They got the cheapest ale 8.
Nice.
And the best meat department. Good prices. So.
All right.
Yeah.
So next time I'm in Jessamine County, I'll
it
swing
is
by.
A trip, like, to the past. Like, inside, he has all these old decorations that are antiques now. You know, he has pictures, like, on every aisle of, like, him and his dad who started it. So it's just so sweet. Oh, and my aunt crashed into it with her car. Two people have
close connection.
Yes, well, 2 people have crashed into the building.
Oh man!
John Michael Montgomery's dad was working in the meat department when someone crashed into it, and they said he jumped like a mile high and ended up on top of some machine somehow. And you know, then my I guess she's my great aunt, Baby Faye, my grandmother's sister, she crashed into the very front and broke all the glass in the front. And, you know, he just laughed. It's like, who does that? Oh, wow. But he was so forgiving and just, he's such a good person. And like I say, there are all these stories built into those walls. Like, you can't let him go. So.
That's sweet. It's sweet. And it just reminds me, like, I did a story this week about, we did a story last week about a homeless man who passed away under I-75. He essentially froze to death, you know.
Yeah.
And so that, obviously, a sad story, but in the process of the coroner trying to reach out to his family, they put his name out, and a former classmate of his contacted us because she saw that, and it kind of broke her heart that that's how he had passed away. Yeah, and so she wanted to raise money for him to have a burial to be brought back to Morgan County. But then I got a hold of one of his nieces, and she said that they had made contact with the coroner, and so he's going to be cremated and brought back. So now, instead, I think any excess money, they're going to essentially give it to either a homeless shelter or someone else like that to kind of help out with those causes. But it just, you know, talking to her, she said that he loved his freedom, and he essentially chose to live out on the streets. That's he was, you know, he had family who loved him, who you know would try to help him. They would check in, and he's like, no, this is what I want to do, and this is where I want to be. And so, you know, we do these stories sometimes, and it's kind of just nameless faces. And so to just do one where to get to kind of know this person, you know.
And I mean, it's not probably most people's first choice, but the homeless community is still a community. Like, it's a very close-knit group of people. They all know each other, and I think they do help each other. And I'm sure they feel like this kinship and this maybe even loyalty to each other. So
Here we go. I was pulling it up. The the family basically sent me a note that they want the money to be given to the crematorium in Lexington to help other families of homeless people who pass but can't afford to lay them to rest. So
my gosh.
how sweet is that? Yeah, and so that, we do these kind of stories sometimes, and it was nice to see some closure there and everybody kind of working towards something,
Yeah.
and to be able to put his name out there and a picture of him smiling and laughing, people to get to kind of see who he was. So that was.
Wow.
I was glad to get to do that. It was kind of heavy, but it was one of those times that.
It's so sad because it's like in life, people didn't know.
Yeah.
It took this for people
that's
to realize how
and
good he is.
His former classmates, she said that what she remembered was a smiling kid in high school, and so she was sad that he, obviously died homeless in Lexington, but according to his family, that was
by choice.
He chose that life.
Yeah.
Like he was.
Wow.
They said he was kind of an independent soul,
There you go.
and so, so yeah, everybody.
Every now and then we get
keep them
those
in your
good
thoughts,
stories,
and that's the thing. It was a tough story, but whenever I hit send, when you're done editing,
I was proud of that one.
I felt good about that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. So that was yeah. So that's online. I may share it on my Facebook page at some point. My favorite thing this week is a show on Netflix that I've started watching called Lock and Key.
Okay, I've heard about this and I don't know what it is.
So it is based on a series of graphic novels, which is one of my favorite series of books that I've ever read. I read through them all. They're all available at the Lexington Public Library. So if you're listening to this and you want to, go to your library, use your library.
Library advocates
Oh, I
here.
love the library
Me
so much.
too.
I've got a movie there I got to go pick up when I leave today, actually, I remember. Because my wife was joking about watching Skyscraper starring The Rock. And I said, we can go watch that right now because it's available at the library. So I think that's what we're going to do this weekend. Just because we like ridiculous movies. But so this show, Lock and Key, it's I would say it's been sanitized some because the comic book is very much a horror story. I mean, it's terrifying, but I've read some interviews where the writers and the people who created the show or the book are heavily involved with the show, but they said that they wanted to do like 3 parts fantasy, 1 part horror. So there's still scary moments. There's still some freaky stuff. My wife, who's notoriously afraid of everything.
Right,
Scooby-Doo scares her. This still freaked her out. She said she was having nightmares and we could only watch 1 episode a night. Even though I wanted to burn through them all. But I think it could be on the CW. I think it's that kind of, they've toned it down that much.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a little bit of violence, but yeah.
A palatable amount of violence.
The entire story is it's this family who the father has died, and so the mother and her 3 kids move back to his family home in Massachusetts, which is this giant mansion called Key House. And you come to discover the reason it's named that is because there are all these keys kind of hidden throughout the property that when used at doors do different things. Some of them don't even need doors. Some of them just do different things, give powers on their own. But yeah, it's all these kind of magical keys.
Interesting.
And it turns out there is someone who wants those keys.
Of course they do.
Yeah. And in the process of this, they get kind of released.
That sounds like something you would like. This is so up your alley.
So it's really good. But I enjoyed Lock and Key a lot. I think especially my thing is if you like Stranger Things, you'll love Lock and Key. I mean, it's very right up.
If you liked this, you may like
there
this.
There you go. If this, then that. So
There
that's
you
my
go.
suggestion
I
this
like
week.
it.
Lock and Key. My other suggestion, if you enjoyed this episode, tell somebody. Share it on
that's a good
some
idea.
social media, or just let us know. That's always nice too.
Somebody tagged us the other day. Somebody asked for podcast recommendations, and they said the Victor and Andrea podcast. I was so happy.
Why didn't you let me know? I had no idea that
on
happened.
On the Twitters.
All right, well, I'll check that out. I've had people occasionally ask for podcast recommendations, and I never want to put us down because that seems kind of self-serving.
I've never even. Well, this is probably bad, but I've never even thought to say ours.
Well, I thought about doing it as a joke. And you're like, why don't you listen to the Victor?
I have one.
And then I'm like, oh, wait, actually, I probably should do that. The other thing I think if you're like a journalism student, I think this is actually a good resource to go back
I do too.
Maybe not the holiday meal draft may not help you, but listening to
it's a palate cleanser for like more.
That's probably true too. But listen to our episodes with our coworkers, with with some of the people that we've had on, just about how they got into the business, the things they enjoy doing. I think that is an actual resource, and I think
it'll be comforting because most of us ended up here like, look. Happenstance, this wasn't our original plan.
Yeah.
It's not like everybody has a smooth, easy path toward where they end up. So I think that's always encouraging to know that, even people who you look up to now, like they weren't always that person.
So that would be my suggestion. If you know somebody who's interested in maybe getting into the news business or something like that, let them know about it. They can hear what it's really like working here.
There you go.
Well, everybody, thanks for listening. Tell Brian hi. Reach out to us on social media. I'm the Victor Puente because the guy who holds Victor Puente still won't give it up. Twitter hasn't released it yet, even though he never
Question.
tweets. Okay.
You can reach out to Twitter to let them know that this is an inactive account, and you might be able to get that name.
All right. I'm going to give
I'm serious.
I'm going to give it a shot.
I heard it on a podcast, and I forgot to tell you, but they were doing it on Instagram, but I
lose
think
3
it
letters.
may be worth. I think it may be worth it.
Here's my question. At this point,
It's worth it.
if I'm just Victor Puente, will people be confused?
You're at the beginning of your career, son.
That's true. I'd like to think that anyway.
Own your name.
Okay. Thanks, Andrea. And if people want to reach out to you, just look up Andrea Walker.
Yeah, at Andrea WKYT on Twitter, which I am not great with. So Facebook is more my jive. Andrea Walker WKYT. Yeah, you can find me.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. Have a good one.
Bye.